through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions.
Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. Welcome to another episode of Gloves Off. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana Sundar, and every week I do this show, and it's really a very fun way to, I guess, end the old week and then start a new week with this. And every week, for those of you who are new, I interview a guest who has really taken their gloves off and done something in life that's courageous, to be more authentic and to do life in the way that they want, that is not confined by what society tells us to do. And also every week I have a guest that, I feel like really embodies that statement in their own unique way. And, for those of you who have been watching this show, I appreciate it. We're actually up to about almost 15,000 viewers a month now. So this is really exciting because I just started in February. I think we're on like 30 something episodes or something like that. So it's definitely been a fun journey to take with all of you. So I appreciate all the support. So also, I'll say this again at the end of the show, but if you like the content, please subscribe to my channel. It's drkalpana.unbound on YouTube, and also we stream on LinkedIn as well and on Facebook. So it's all the same name. But, in the spirit of what we do every week, this week I have a guest named Heather Wyatt. So I love how this community has grown because it's always, I meet somebody who introduces me to somebody else, who introduces me to somebody else. And then my whole community starts to grow, which I absolutely love. So several months back, I had Angie Giltner on, and she has a podcast called Girl with Purple Hair Talks Business, if I remember correctly. And so she actually introduced me to Heather. So Heather and I had connected a long time ago, and I wanted to really get her on the show because she does these amazing retreats in Costa Rica. And she's the visionary and founder of Goddess Getawaves. Now, when I hear that, I of course think of goddesses because that's just amazing. Goddesses are amazing. But I also think about goddesses and beachy waves and just, I don't know, it just sounds fun and exotic. And I can't wait to deep dive into this conversation to hear how she got into this point. We're going to talk about retreats, because they're really popular these days. When is the right time for a high-powered person to go on a retreat? What are the types of retreats they should be looking for? What are the things that we need to know? It's kind of confusing, even for me. I've been to a couple of retreats and I honestly don't even know what to look for. So we're going to deep dive into that and her personal story. But before we get into all that, obviously we have to thank our sponsor, Elevated CPA, for sponsoring the show every week. right. Well, I apparently had trouble finding that button. I looked over and I was like, where's the button? And then I looked over onto my system and see that something was muted. So I pray that the whole first portion of that was not muted. So hopefully not. If so, well, I'm really sorry because sometimes we just got to have some technical difficulties to make life exciting. So as I said before, we're going to be talking with Heather Wyatt. So I say we just bring her on and get right into the conversation. Hello, Heather. Welcome to Gloves Off.
Hi, thank you. I'm very excited to be here and chatting with you.
Oh, I'm so excited too. Where was I? Hopefully you could hear me. I was
No,
like,
I could hear you. Yeah,
okay.
it was perfect.
It was weird because I looked over and I see this like red mute thing on, and I thought, oh God, I hope that first part was going. Well, we'll find out after we're done. But well, thank you so much for joining us today. And you are right now. You're not in Costa Rica, are you?
No, right now I am in Texas.
That's what I thought. Okay. So at least you're not that far, well, it's still a time difference, but you're not that far away technically.
Right. And that was kind of the idea. It gets me closer. There was a business summit here, which was great. Some networking events, which has been fantastic. And it's a little closer for me when I'm heading back.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. So I have so many questions to ask you. And one of the big ones is, well, I have so many. So let me just start with, when do people know it's time to go to a retreat? I mean, do we just get this miraculous calling in our mind or in our hearts that says, you got to go to a retreat? Or is it something where we should just do something like this regularly to recharge? I mean, what is your opinion on that?
I don't think there is a time where you're going to miraculously feel like you're ready, because we're human, and especially as high achievers, we are constantly on the go. So I definitely think you have to proactively make time, schedule it. It's for yourself. It's part of that self-care. Just like I'm a big proponent of scheduling in time off in the beginning of the year for your work calendar, because if you don't, you won't do it. So you can prepare financially and take the time you need to be able to do it. So I definitely think it's something that should be done regularly, and an effort has to be made to do it.
I would agree with that. So, what do you feel about vacations versus retreats? I feel like the audience would have questions about that. Because I mean, you could just go on a vacation or you could go on a retreat. So, what's the difference?
You can. So it depends what you want. To me, a vacation, you're just going. You probably just want to sit around on the beach drinking your cocktails or whatever it is you do. Some people that is literally all they want to do. Some people might want to explore a bit. That's fine. And there is a time and a place for that. Sometimes you do need that. So the beautiful thing with retreats are there are so many and so many different types. I think when people hear retreat, they automatically think wellness retreat or yoga retreat. And they don't realize that there are so many different kinds and styles. You can literally find the one that works for you, whether you do want to immerse yourself in wellness and have your meals prepared for you. And you want to be at the spa. You want to go deep in a yoga retreat. There are more business focused retreats. There are more adventure retreats. All sorts. You can go in, and some retreats do require very deep personal work where you're working with traumas and that sort of thing as well. So it all depends what you need.
Right. And so that is a great explanation, because I think that, me personally, I feel like during this time that I'm not working, I really enjoy a blend. I do like some vacations, and I also like the idea of retreats. Just depending on what I feel I'm working on in that moment, something will appeal to me. And that's just how I've always done it. And I think I know that it's so true. There's so many different types of retreats, because I know when I first heard the word retreat, I also associated with yoga, wellness, and things like that, which I'm definitely into. But you're right, there are so many different things, and you can have luxury. You can have, you can have it where you're like roughing it a little bit if that's your idea of a retreat. Hiking, who knows? I mean, there's just so many things I've seen. And I think it's such a great opportunity to meet like-minded people at retreats. And frankly, my move to San Diego started with a retreat. I came here and I met so many great people, and I felt like they were way more like-minded than the people I knew back home. And I thought, you know what? Let's do it. I mean, I could always go back to Florida if I wanted to, right? So that's how it started for me. But I think it really just opens your mind in so many ways. Did we lose you?
I agree. That's
Oh.
super cool. I love stories like that too, where you find out how you got there. So that's beautiful.
Yes, yes. Well, and so what made you decide that this is what you're going to do? Because you had a whole different focus in your life before. So let's talk a little bit about that transition.
So, yes, I would love to. So, people tend to think all of these things that I've done are so different. There definitely is a thread running through all of the things I do. In my previous life, my work was bartending and serving in restaurants, and I worked lots of cool places and cool events. And some of those places were farm to table, where I got to care more about the ingredients. And since I was into wellness, I really started to enjoy that component of it. At least the work while I was doing, while I wanted to get out of it, was moving in the right direction. So in my personal life, I love wellness and farm to table food. I think all of us should be eating a whole foods diet, regardless if you want to be vegetarian or pescatarian. Whole foods is for everyone, 100%. And it's hard to do. You have to be very proactive about it. So that got me into health coaching, and that got me into the business world and learning all that side of everything. And from there, I created wellness parties at luxury residential communities. So I incorporated some of those skills. We do mocktails, gluten-free and vegan appetizers, and sound healing. And from there, I'm surrounded by so many awesome people. When I started making new business plans and saying, you know what, I just want to move to Costa Rica, it was very much, I felt like it was able to become a reality just because I was surrounded by so many possible people. And so I shifted my business plan to creating retreats for people. But they're all the same skills. So it's always been experiences and making people feel good, and just events. To me, experiences and memories are the most treasured thing.
That's so true. And sometimes you can go through life collecting a lot of material things. And later, I feel that we probably all go through a phase where we think that's important for a while. And then you start to realize as you get older that there's really not that much excitement. And, for me right now, I care more about experiences, meeting people and having amazing experiences that I can remember. That's super, super important. I would say utmost important. Well, and then health and wellness too, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I love how you said that all of your skill sets strung together, because I think that many of us, when we think about doing something that we truly love, would default to, oh, I don't know how to do that, or I wasn't trained to do that, or I didn't go to school to do that. But in reality, often, and I feel that this is true with many of my guests that I've had on the show, we have some different things that happen in our lives, and we start to learn this, we start to learn that, we start to learn that. And if we look, there is a common thread. And it's kind of a thread, I feel, that if you follow it, it could lead you to a life that is so unimaginably wonderful if you just have the guts to follow the thread.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that. It's a lot of trusting yourself and that intuition. And something that's really helped me in that was selling all of my material stuff and just listening to myself and going on my journey, because it wasn't just overnight. It was a process. It was emotional. I'm leaving the place I know. I'm going to another country, but trusting in what I'm doing removing people that didn't understand what I was doing and putting the negative thoughts in my head. But it was part of the process, just stripping it all down and really listening. I do know how to do this. I do know how to do that. And going through different trainings and things I've done, I was like, oh, well, that's the same thing as this. So, and they're all hospitality things as well. So I really think it does go back to that intuition and trusting yourself and having the courage.
That's a great point that you're bringing up. So, how did you know that this was the right thing for you to do? And then how did you keep that fear and all the naysayers under control? I know that's a big question, but let's start with that. How did you know it was right? Because a
How
lot
do
of
I
people struggle
know?
with that.
I see the end goal. The end goal for me is very big.
Mhm.
And luckily, I'm aware enough to know this is part of the journey, even when it isn't always easy. How do I know? It's just something inside me that lights me up. So it's that excitement, knowing the things I'm doing are just so important because long term, there's a lot of giving back. Like, I love getting to create these things for people. For me, it's like Christmas morning. It's like when someone else first comes to the country and it's like the ooh and ah, and I get to facilitate that and bring them there. So that's exciting for me. And in my work, I want there to be a giving back component in all of the things that I do. So that drives me to make everything I'm doing successful because that's fun for me. And so I guess when I know this is what gives me life, I'm passionate about it. I work more than ever, and that's okay. Some of my work is really fun, but I love it. So I think that's really how I know because it's what I do for fun. I love what I'm doing. I'm building, I'm putting things together, and it's just that's it. I know. I will like spend all of my time doing this.
That's awesome. And that's the great part that you're actually able to have fun while you're doing it. So there's this concept of work-life balance, right? And when you don't like what you do, this is just something I've noticed in my life. When I don't like what I do, I really, really need to have balance. Like I need to turn off work, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I've noticed for me is that when I really like what I'm doing, a lot of it starts to become fun. And it doesn't even really feel like work. And then it doesn't feel like I need that much time away from it. I still do make sure I take some time away from it because, that makes me feel better and more grounded. But I just noticed that more of what I do really doesn't feel like work. Whereas before, all of what I did felt like work.
Mhm.
And then also my thoughts on this too was that I felt like when I knew there was time for a shift for me and I was doing the right thing for myself, I knew that the excitement and the joy really outweighed the fear. So the fear for me was still there and it would crop up its little ugly head every now and then, but it was like here. Whereas the joy and the passion and the excitement was way, way up here. So I think that's how I know. I'm just trying to quantify in words what is really a gut feeling, and it's really hard to
Yes.
do.
And that's what it is. It's hard to describe when you know. And that's what it goes back to. It's internal. You just know. So there have been many times. I mean, there have been many times I'm sitting in this beautiful jungle with the view and I'm like, what am I doing? Oh my God. And then I'm like, okay, I believe in the mission of what I'm doing and I'm in it now. There's no turning back. I am determined and stubborn and I will accomplish what I want to. So I'm just in the middle of it now. There's no going back. And that's how I view it. I'm
Yeah.
in it. I'm here to do all of the things I'm setting out to do.
So tell us about okay, wait, actually, let me go back. Tell us about moving to Costa Rica, another country. Were you by yourself? Do you have anybody that was helping you? Like, how did this go?
No, I just went by myself.
Yeah.
I
That's
sold all of my stuff. I went with like 4 pieces of luggage. So, and there have been some people I met, I met someone that did link me up to an apartment that I trusted. I had one friend there that I met that does holistic massages, and we've stayed in touch and we became good friends. So she was like my one good source there, which was amazing. I'm so grateful for her. But it was, yeah, figuring it out. And even though I've been there several times, that first week I was there, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm in another country. What am I doing?
Yeah,
And
can
but
be
eventually
nerve-wracking.
that faded and it was fine. And now I'm just like back and forth, like it's no big deal. But that was there. It was a very real thing. And it seemed like a big deal. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me now, but in the moment it did.
Oh, of course, of course. I think all big changes seem like a big deal in the moment because you're leaving everybody behind that you know, all the things that made you comfortable. You're leaving those behind. They're speaking a different language that I don't know if you can speak. You can speak Spanish or
I speak enough to get by on my
okay,
own, okay? It's
yeah,
not very official. I'm not translating any documents, but
right.
I can talk some smack and crack some jokes. So that gets you very
Oh,
far.
I like that. You know what? Frankly, I think the goal of learning any language should be to talk some smack and crack some jokes.
It'll get you very far. If you can make people laugh, that's automatically an icebreaker and just a little
It's so
bonding
true.
moment.
It's so true. I'm actually learning Italian on Babbel right now. I'm like, maybe
Oh,
there's a section on, talking smack and cracking jokes. That'd be awesome.
yeah, you have to learn the slang for those things.
Yeah, you really do. And that's really, really hard. So, well, that's great. It sounds like, it didn't take you too long. How long have you been there in Costa Rica now?
So it was 8 months, the first round. I'll be going back in December.
Okay.
And at that moment in the time, I didn't think I'd be going back and forth so much, but
Mm,
different opportunities came up for events that I'm doing. So I was back and forth more than I liked. But you know what? I like it because it keeps things new and fresh. It's like at this moment, I really am enjoying Texas, but I'm ready to go back. And then after I'm there for some time, I'll be like, oh, I'm ready to see the US a little bit again. So it keeps things fresh and keeps me present, very present and in gratitude each place that I'm at.
that's perfect. That's perfect. So now I'm going to ask you how the very first retreat that you put together, I want you to, let's take a little time capsule and go backwards. Let's look at how you felt before, that first retreat, because there's so much, there's things that you got to organize, just making sure you have, everything right. And I don't know, contingency plans, I assume, and you've got people who trust you to put together this retreat. Were you a nervous wreck or were you pretty calm? How'd you feel?
For me, when I'm in planning mode, it doesn't feel chaotic to me. And I
Oh,
think that's the beauty of this because for other people, it feels very stressful and chaotic. To me, it's fun. It's putting a puzzle together and all of the pieces. But I kind of thrive in that. I mean, my best work, like I used to love being in a busy bar doing 8,000 things, and that is a skill.
hmm,
So for me, doing 8,000 things feels normal to me and doesn't feel stressful.
right.
I'm just very good at planning. Even now, all the things I'm doing in my personal life, it's a lot of planning and scheduling. And so it's not stressful to me. There's a lot of excitement. There's like, oh, are they going to love everything? You want them to, like, it's going to be awesome, but you want it to go well. And luckily, I work with people that it feels really good to work with. I want us always to be on the same page. I want the process to feel good when we're working together.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to say this without sounding badly, but I don't want to work with people who are going to stress me out either and who are going to be super neurotic about it. That's
Mhm.
not a person I'm going to take on as a client because they are going to stress me out and it's not going to be enjoyable.
I
So
think
just
that's so
knowing,
wise. I think that's so wise because I think a lot of us, when we start new businesses, I think it's societal conditioning that we just feel like we have to take all comers, and there's that 80-20 rule, 80% of those people are people you're not going to want to work with because it's that 20% that really drive the revenue in your business. And I think it's actually so important to be selective, which is great. And I think because the bottom line is when we work with people that stress us out, it really takes a lot out of us. And then we
mhm.
are not able to give to the people who do appreciate us, who we are a good fit for. So I think it needs to always be done that way, frankly. So I'm glad that that's a real, one of your non-negotiables.
I agree. And thank you for saying that. I think more people should believe that, because
I
there
agree.
is the thing, take all business until, you're really comfortable. I'm not willing to do that. I'm willing to play the longer game and have it be right. So
Hmm.
it's enjoyable. Like I said, I'm working more than I ever have in my life on my businesses.
Hmm.
So I didn't go into this to hate it. I'm going to enjoy it, and it's going to be a feel good process.
It
So,
should be.
yeah. So that's important to me. It's very important.
And frankly, I agree with you. I think it should be important to everybody. I do a lot of coaching for aesthetic providers, and this is one of the things I tell them. I say, listen, you don't want to take every client that comes in the door just because they want a procedure done. You really have to be selective and pick that 20%, because that 20% drives your revenue, really. And it does it without creating all the headaches that the other 80% create. And I learned that early in my med spa and my practice, because, I had this 20% of people who are so happy with everything. They made nothing difficult, and they were just a joy. Every time I saw them, I was excited. The minute I got that feeling where I saw somebody's name on the schedule and I thought, ugh, I was like, ooh, now it might maybe I shouldn't really be seeing this person. And it really makes a difference. It makes a difference on everything, every interaction, the outcome of everything. And it's not that they're bad people. It just means some people are not right fit for other people. That's all.
Hmm.
There's somebody for
Absolutely.
everybody.
Absolutely. I never want to look at my calendar and, oh, like,
Right.
I have to meet with that person now. And that's even hard to do. It's a lot to set boundaries for yourself and stick with that and listen to those feelings. Like you said, it popped up. It's
Hmm.
really challenging to do, and it takes progress. It takes work. It's a work in progress.
Oh yeah. And
So
I
it's
always
part of it.
I joke because, I also talk a lot about boundaries and a lot of the things I do. I'm sure you do too. But one of the things I joke is that the biggest and hardest person to set boundaries from is me with
Mhm.
myself. I'll be
Yeah.
like, and I don't do this anymore, but I used to take time off. And if I saw a blank day that was supposed to be a day off, I went and filled it with all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I just sabotaged my own rules. Like, this is ridiculous. But now I don't do that. I actually fill it with things that I want to do. I fill it with
Mhm.
stuff, but not work stuff. So I am so much better at boundaries against myself. But yeah, I feel like that's the hardest person to deal with, is you versus you.
Yes, for sure. I'm guilty of that as well. And I'm the first person to advocate for people taking time for retreats, taking care of themselves. So I know you have to be proactive with it, because, like you said, there's really no work life balance. And one of my patterns is to sprint for a very long time and then crash. So now I'm aware I still sprint, but I plan that slow down so I don't crash. So listening to when I need it, so I don't get to the point that I'm crashing. I'm just more like gliding down.
That's great. And you're using so many of the same analogies that I use, but it's funny because I say the same thing. I'm like, I used to do the same thing. I used to sprint and crash. And
Mhm.
now my sprints are getting shorter. I would say that's something that's happening to me now, but I just know that I can't sprint as long as I used to. For whatever reasons, probably my age, but I just can't do it. I need some slowdown, and then I really come back energized. And I also say it's similar to, I work out a lot, and I find the same thing in my workouts, meaning that if I'm going hard many, many days in a row, sometimes I need a day or two off and not do anything. And then I come back stronger. And I feel the same thing happens in my business. So that makes it easier for me to slow down a little faster when I'm feeling it. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm seeing the signs earlier. So I know when to pull back a little sooner than I used to.
Exactly. And
Live and we
what you
learn.
just described is exactly one of the benefits of retreats. You're coming back so much more refreshed and energized, and have more momentum in your business life, in your regular life.
Mhm.
It's one of the biggest benefits. So it's like, oh, well, I can't take the time to do it. And it's just the basic principles of self care. You will be better for doing it.
That is such a great point because, yes, I think that people really have a hard time taking the time, spending the money, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at what the output of that, like, yeah, maybe you just, you down throttled a little bit for a couple of days or whatever the case is. Usually most retreats are a couple of days or a week or something.
Mhm.
But every time I've taken time off, I feel like it's exponential. What I got out at the other end has been so much better because I'm clear, I'm calm, I'm coming from a different, more centered place. And that's really what I feel retreats do for you. And also the amazing connections. I mean, when you meet people from all over, it is just such an amazing thing. And then now things get accelerated a lot faster than if you just stay in your little bubble and don't go anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And especially in a place like Costa Rica, it's just so inspiring. If you've never been, like any country, any place that makes you feel like a tiny, insignificant human is just amazing for inspiration. Just being in so much nature. I
Okay.
So having that downtime, you're allowing new thoughts and creativity to come in. Also, I've
Yes.
had some of my best ideas when I've taken the time to pause. Like when I'm out in nature, I'm not a person, even going for a walk, I don't listen to headphones. I'm not listening to a podcast. That is my listen to the nature sounds and to my own voice in my head. That's time with myself to listen to what's coming up. Because if we always have the words of somebody else in our mind, we can't find what our own words are.
So true. And nature really has a healing frequency. I am the same as you. When I go out in nature, often I'll just take my dog, obviously, because we're walking or something, and he's a great companion. He doesn't talk. So, so basically, it's just this I do feel a frequency and a vibration that's very different when I'm indoors. And, sometimes you just see people, smile at them, glance at them. There's just something really rejuvenating. And I'm not even in Costa Rica where it's way more beautiful.
Mhm.
And, you're around so much beautiful trees and there are volcanoes. What are the other thing? There's more. I know I'm blanking on what the word is.
Yeah, monkeys, rainforest.
Rainforest, thank you. That was what I was
Uh-huh.
trying to think of. Like, I can't think of what the word is. I was blanking.
There are
Rainforest, I
lakes,
mean,
the
it's gorgeous.
ocean,
Yes.
stars. Oh my gosh, it's just everything. I've never spent so much time just looking at bugs crawling because I've never
Ah.
seen something look so cool and intricate before.
Interesting. So I went to Costa Rica. It's been about it's probably been 15 years now. My goodness, time flies. Anyway, that was the only time I've been there, and it was a girls' trip. So I think it was about 10 of us, and we did a surfing adventure.
Oh,
So I can't even remember where we stayed. I want to say, I don't even remember the town we stayed in, but we did, we stayed there, and it was really, really fun. And it was, I think we did like 6 or 7 days of surfing. The one thing I remember was pedaling out on that surfboard, thinking I might die by the time I get out there. But it's hilarious now because I'm in better shape. My upper body was clearly weak back then. And then the funniest part was after the surfing thing, like they had pictures. And I remember I was married at the time. I told my husband, I said, I was riding these huge waves. They were about 5 or 6 feet tall. And then I see the picture, and then this is the wave. I was like, well, okay, it wasn't 6 feet. In my mind, it was 6 feet, but it was literally like nothing.
but you did it and you felt so powerful doing it.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I was glad I did it, but it was not easy. I mean, surfing is not easy I was 40 at the time, so first time
It's
surfing.
not.
So
I don't surf because I'm not a strong enough swimmer and I don't have that strength and I don't like being underwater. But it's so beautiful to watch. People make it look so easy, but it's
anything
really, really hard.
It's really hard. It's like anything in life. People who do it well make it look so easy. So you never can judge with that because you're like, oh, it looks easy, and it's really hard. But it was an amazing place. I actually would really like to go back and see more. I didn't get to see a lot of we didn't do any of that, like the volcanoes and the rainforest. So it is just a gorgeous place. People are very friendly. I remember the food being amazing. I remember the weather being pretty amazing. I don't know if it is that way all year long, but when we were there, the weather was beautiful.
Hmm. It's hot.
So,
It's very hot. There is
okay.
a green season, a rainy season, but that's also a beautiful time to visit because it's not it's typically not raining nonstop, but even when it's raining, it's so beautiful. There are
That's
people
cool.
now I'm watching, on the internet, keeping tabs with everyone, and people are taking trips there. They're like, rainy season, it hasn't rained once. So
Oh, nice.
it's always a beautiful time to go.
How many retreats are you hosting every year? Or, I mean, does it
I can't
vary?
really answer that because it's not a definite answer. Like
Hmm.
right
Okay.
now, we're working 2025, 2026. We're
Oh,
starting to
wow.
plan some things. And what I'm learning is it's a very long sales cycle from the time I meet someone and they decide they want to retreat. It's a very long process. So, and we also recommend planning 9 to 12 months out from your retreat so that you have time to, yes, we have to create it, you have to market it, you have to sell it, to do it properly. So that's a long time in planning. And what I'm noticing, I attract a lot of coaches, people with high ticket offers, masterminds, people with the communities around them.
Mm-hmm.
So what tends to happen sometimes also, people will go out, do a retreat, and see how much work it is. So my favorite clients to work with are the ones that have done retreats before, know how much work it is, and come to me and say, no, I want to save my energy. I need you to do all of those things. Those are my perfect people. So I'm starting to see some of that also, people coming back like, hey, I want to do this again, but I need you to do that part so I can save my energy and put the effort into filling, marketing, and facilitating, because
Mm-hmm.
that itself takes a lot of energy out of a person.
It really does. And I think that is a really, really important point. Now, I've not ever done a retreat, but I'm actually good friends with a lot of people who have done retreats, and they say the same thing. So I'm going to give them your information from now on. And many of them have just stopped doing retreats because it was exhausting. And I've had people tell me that they were literally bedridden for 3 or 4 days, could not move because they were that exhausted. Because it is a long sales cycle to fill these retreats. And if you're doing everything plus the planning and all that,
Uh-huh.
it's really a lot. It really is a lot. And frankly, I think if you're and my goal is different. I don't do so I have rules for me that I have set in place. I don't do anything that's not fun for me. I don't work with anybody that's not fun for me. And if anything's exhausting, I don't do that either.
Uh-huh. I
I've
like
already
it.
done
Great rules.
I was like, I already done that already. I don't want to recreate the stupid stuff that I did before. It would be really dumb. Anyway, but I think it's so important. And this is a really important point for anybody out there who's watching and wants to host a retreat. Retreats are meant so you can deliver your zone of genius to the people that show up. If you are exhausted, you're really not going to be doing that to the best of your ability. So, I'm a big delegator of all things, and anything that isn't really something that I should be doing, I really try to offload it as much as possible so I can keep doing only the things that I love doing, that I feel are my gift to the world. And I feel like everybody should probably be doing it. Otherwise, it is exhausting and it'll take you out of commission, and then you never want to do it again. And that's not a great feeling to
Yes.
have.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell people. I work with talented individuals. They absolutely can do this themselves.
Hmm.
Well, why would you? What's the cost if you do it or not? So those are the people that I like to work with, people that see the value in having someone else do it, especially when it's something like it stresses you out so much, but it's not that stressful to me. Like it's just, it
Right.
works. That's why it's a great team, winning team.
100%. And that's the thing. Being in collaboration with people who kind of seamlessly do the thing that's super stressful for you is perfect. Like, honestly, even in life, if you look at it, like, for example, I mean, some people love cleaning. It stresses me out. It just
Mhm.
stresses me out because after I clean, I look at it and I go, it really doesn't even feel clean. It really doesn't look that good. And then I feel like a personal failure after I've done it. So I have decided that that gets outsourced forevermore because I am not good at it. I'd rather be doing whatever I'm doing and feeling like I'm winning at it.
Right. And that's perfect. That's exactly it. I have my own personal shopping list for things I don't want to be doing and in what order I need to hire them. And there are some things, even my website is under construction right now because we're going to do it properly and doing all the things in the right order. I need to redo it with all stuff that I've done and the right people, the right copy. But I have a whole order in what I need to do things. I have a great virtual team, assistant team I need to hire to get all of my systems and processes cleaned up and in order, because I'm like the creative person. So the way I work is kind of, nobody else is going to get it, what I do. It's
Right.
just, it's a creative process. You know, it gets done, but there's a method to my own madness that only I understand. So I need an external person to clean that up for me.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Well, it sounds like you really got a great process in organizing and keeping to the things that you're really, really good at. Most people that I talk to so many business owners, are not quite that way. They really start with this feeling of they should be doing everything, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. I mean, I also have a constant list of things to delegate. Sometimes I haven't found the right person yet, so those things are kind of on a hold because I've also stopped looking for people anymore. I actually know they'll show up when they're supposed to. Everything just works out. It's so weird. I don't know if you do this, but I put things off now that are not truly important.
Oh, yes.
Until some sort of inspiration really nags at me, and then I will take care of it. And the weirdest thing happens. The right people fall into my lap. And I'm like, oh, well, rather than me beating up my head against the wall looking for X when maybe it's not time for X, I don't bother anymore. I have it on my little list of things I want to do, even personal things, same thing. I just wait till some inspiration really hits me to go do it, and then it just goes smoother.
Yeah, that's when everything's just in alignment.
I feel like this is a cheat code to life.
It is. And I tend to do that too. You know, I know people are very big on schedules and time blocking and all of the things. Yes, those are important. But I also live my life very much that way. If there's something on my calendar that is not urgent and needs to be taken care of right now, and I'm just like, sit down and I'm not feeling it, I don't do it, because I am going to feel it 3 days later and it's going to get done in 5 seconds instead of 3 hours when I was going to force myself to do it when I wasn't feeling it.
That is so, I've never heard a single person say they do it that way. And I do the same thing. I have a list of things that need to be done in that week. And sometimes they don't have a particular order to them. And sometimes there's just things on there, like if I get to it or if I feel like it, I will do it. Those I know, which I have things color coded, so I know it could easily move to the following week, and I know what's on a real deadline for this week. But if it doesn't get done Monday and it gets done Tuesday, and because I felt like doing it, typically it gets done in half the time, and it's a lot more joyful. The whole process is joyful.
It is, but I tend to upset business coaches when I say this because they're like, no, stick to the calendar, stick to the thing. I'm like, no, I don't want to. It's just, it doesn't make sense. I'm saving time by doing it this way. And
I
it
agree.
works for me. And it makes things more enjoyable, and everything else is in alignment when we're carrying that energy instead.
I frankly think if everybody did it that way, but I think the trick is you have to know what can't wait. I mean, there are just some things that can't wait. Then you need to so some of those things you may just have to buckle down. You don't want to do it, but you're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
But it depends what kind of work you're in. And I think if you're in a creative kind of work like I'm in and you're in, a lot of times I have wiggle room with some of my creative things. Some of my work isn't creative, so those things I have to be on a deadline. But anything that's creative, I just wait till that inspiration. I know I need to get it done within that time frame, and I just wait. And it goes so much easier.
Yes, you definitely do have to be a very self-aware and self-disciplined person. If you know you're going to just screw around and never do it because you're a procrastinator, then this style is not for you.
Exactly. That's so true. And I'm not a procrastinator. I was actually quite the other way. Sometimes I do things almost too early and put more pressure on myself because it was almost like, I don't know how to explain this, but I think I was feeling that the whole to-do list of my whole life had to get done ahead of time, So of course the to-do list kept getting bigger and bigger, and it just stressed me out. So now what I do is I just have found the sweet spot with getting it done with just enough time. and I am not so stressed about everything.
It works. There's a method to it.
Yeah.
I have anxiety always, and it's one of my superpowers because it's the reason I get so many things done, because if I don't do it, my anxiety is much higher. So I'm really just keeping everything in order to keep it under control, and I can feel like a normal person. I don't know what people without anxiety do all day, but it works for me. It helps me be very productive.
Well, it's really interesting. So I think that there is a time and place where anxiety can drive you. This is just like, I just say this from life experience, and I have a feeling that I'm quite a few years older than you. So, but I used to be that way too. And the anxiety would drive me. I found a way to repurpose that. I don't really, so now it's weird because I don't actually have any anxiety. And if I start having anxiety, then I feel like I'm doing something wrong and I change it,
Mm.
because that anxiety now used to be a friend has now turned into a foe. It's not
Ah.
my friend anymore. It's something I don't want in my life. And I don't know if this is, I don't know, or either I've changed or something has really shifted in me. But I was like that too, where the anxiety would really drive me to get all these things done. But I can actually, in a very peaceful way, get all the things done anyway without having anxiety. So now if I feel anxiety, I don't like it. It feels very uncomfortable to
Mm.
me. We do get used to things. So meaning when I was
Yeah.
in my ear, nose, and throat practice, and my surgical practice, and my med spa, I thrived on a very, very high level of stress, which felt very normal to me. And I remember saying to myself once upon a time, I want it to be so that level of stress is abnormal
Hmm.
eventually.
Yes. And I very much agree with that. I was just having this conversation with someone because we're so used to it. And I'm seeing it in myself, just being back in the US too. We are capable
Mm.
of doing so much more. And there are awesome people to meet and things to do and all of this stuff. It's in go mode constantly. And now I'm kind of full time traveling. So I am constantly in that state. And that's why it's so important to take those times and have those retreat moments, because you don't know what that feels like because you're so used to high stress feeling normal that once you get it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that's possible. And then you will make time to make sure it happens again.
It's so true. It's so true. I was looking over because we had a couple of live messages, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't see it." And I was like, "Oh, let
Oh,
me see what those were." So people just chiming in saying hello, which was nice. I was like,
oh, so
oh, but
cute.
then
I
I
can't
looked.
see them.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, I know. There's sometimes there are hosts that will put them up, but it's hard to. It distracts me and it leaves me, gets me unfocused. From when I see things popping up, I lose my train of thought. So I like to get very focused into my conversation, and I do glance and I look. So you all are welcome to chime in, but I don't like to put it up there because it just, to me, it's distracting. I've been on shows where it's like that and it distracts me.
Yeah.
Again, one needs to know oneself very, very
Yeah.
well. And I think I'm at a point where I know me really well. I don't go against what doesn't work for me anymore. So, but I think it's fabulous. I mean, then, so do you spend a lot of time in the United States, or is it just depending on what's going on?
Yes, it's kind of depends. Everything in my life right now is a big, it depends
Okay.
on what's happening, what opportunities, what events we're doing. Um, so the plan as of now is to head back to Costa Rica in December. But there's something I'm waiting on because I might have some event stuff to be doing. I don't know where, so that's on pause. And that's okay. It depends. It's exciting. It's fun. Um, yeah. And I just roll with it.
That's so good. But I love that. I mean, it seems like you have found a good balance of what works for you, meaning that when you're planning these retreats and everything, if you have a little bit of anxiety, you know that that's fuel for your fire,
Mhm.
which sounds like it works for you, which is great. I mean, we are all different human beings, and what works for one person doesn't work for the next. It sounds like this moving around from the US to Costa Rica works very, very well for you. And I do believe that all of us can craft a life that may not look like it works for other people, but that's okay. Because I think many of us are probably, if we looked at ourselves really closely, unconventional in many, many ways. And we just feel like we have to conform. So I've done a similar thing. I like to spend, I'm actually working on a business thing that I'm working on with two people from Europe. And I know that eventually that will be something I'm going to be in Europe more often. And then I go to Florida right now quite a bit just because I have some family there. And then I'm in California most of the time. But that doesn't bother me, that life of being on the East Coast sometimes and the West Coast most of the time and being on Europe hopefully more and more as time goes on. That works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. So it is really important to take a really good look at oneself, really determine what makes us happy outside from the noise that other people tell us. Because
Yes.
you said you had a lot of that when you were doing this.
That's so important.
How did you shut that down?
So I still actually have to, because there will be people, and it's usually family, that just don't get it. And, well, what about this? What about that? I don't know. And people aren't comfortable not knowing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing in 2 months. I don't know where I'm going to be. Other people are uncomfortable by that. I'm not. It works great for me. But these are also people that are just unhappy with their jobs, sitting in their boxes, just getting through life, looking at the clock. I don't live like that. So I'm not stressed about it. So it's okay. And I think it goes back to having the courage to live the life that you want, whether people understand it or not. And that also is a work in progress, because things will always come up. You always get chances to practice it and stay true to what you want.
Well, it sounds like the beautiful thing is that you really trust yourself. So if you don't know what's happening 2 months, it's okay because
Yeah.
you will figure it out. I mean, you probably have a plan B, and if you don't, you're going to figure it out when the time comes. I did the same thing when I moved to California. I thought, you know what, if it doesn't work out, I can always move back to Florida. That's the worst thing that could happen. And I thought, I'll just wait and see. And, I wasn't sure even I gave it 6 months. I gave myself 6 months to see how I like it. I think in month 5, I decided I wasn't going back. It was pretty close. I was like, I don't know. I'll figure it out when I know. So it's great that you have the kind of courage and the ability to know that whatever that is, you're going to figure it out. And then for the people out there there are a lot of people out there who are fear-based. And I believe fear comes from the lack of ability to trust yourself, and also a lot from societal conditioning telling us we need to do something a certain way. And that's when people get so afraid. I always say, don't let fear drive the bus. It's never fun.
Right.
That ride, when fear is driving the bus, that journey of life sucks. I would say I've done it that way before, and it sucks.
It does. It's for sure. And we have so much more control than we realize. But like you said, there is so much conditioning and programming, and I need this, and I need stuff, and I need a fancy apartment, and I need this. I had all of that. I got my life like so perfect, and I was still unsatisfied.
Yep.
So, and I have less things than I've ever had, but I like this. Every day is an adventure, and that fuels me. There's nothing more terrifying to me than what terrifies me is seeing people from high school in the same town and never left, with their kids going to the same school. And that's great for them. It's terrifying to me. It's terrifying to me to be kept in a box. Like, I want to go and see everything and do everything. I don't want to feel trapped. And to me, that feels trapped, but it's a perfect life for many of them. And that's okay.
You and I are a lot alike. That's exactly what makes me feel trapped. If I don't have choices, I feel trapped. I like the idea of expansiveness. I can't be stuck. None of that feels good to me. Oh, God, this has been such a great interview. I feel like I could have talked to you for 2 hours.
Oh, I know.
I feel like we're kind of like sisters from another mister. The things you say, I'm like,
sure.
Oh, exactly what I say.
Angie knew what she was doing when she brought us together.
Oh my God, it typically works that way. So it's pretty amazing. I have to say that I do have a retreat on my agenda as well. So, I know that I'm not going to do the whole thing, and that's going to stress me the hell out. I don't want any parts of it. So when that time comes, I will be calling you. And
that's so exciting.
And to all of our people watching out there, Heather's got her LinkedIn. I've got her LinkedIn down there. So you can always reach out to her on LinkedIn. The website, as she mentioned before, is under construction, but she's very responsive on LinkedIn. So, well, thank you. This was just such an enjoyable interview. And thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully in another, some time goes by, I love to re-interview guests because it's fun to see what they've been.
Oh, yes, that would be awesome.
Well, great. You have a great evening, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you guys really enjoyed that interview because I did. I felt like I was talking to myself, which was awesome. Joking. But anyway, next week we have, again, speaking about traveling the world and not wanting to be in a box, I was in Estonia in July. I think many of you may remember I went to speak at a conference over there, and I met so many amazing people. And I'm going to be interviewing Gurjit Rana next week. And she calls herself the marriage expert. So we're going to really deep dive into what really keeps a marriage going, because I feel like for so many of us with the divorce rate so high, we don't really know, and we hear a lot of different things. What I like about her approach is she really balances a lot of that masculine and feminine energy, which is kind of an unusual way that, I've just not seen it. So we will be deep diving into that conversation next week. So stay tuned. Enjoy your evening, everybody. I know that we've got some fabulous weather here in California, and hopefully in most of the country, probably except the really hot states, we're seeing some gorgeous fall weather. So enjoy your night, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Gloves Off.